Dear friends, there's a kind of silence that falls over a home when love has been wounded. The silence after an argument, after harsh words, after something sacred between two people breaks. Every couple, no matter how strong, reaches that moment. And in those moments, the question is never who was right, but who will love first. Forgiveness is not an emotion, it's a decision, a bridge built not on feelings but on faith. And yet, in a world that tells us to defend our pride, forgiveness can feel like weakness. But in God's eyes, it is the greatest strength of all. In small American towns, you still see it. Couples who've been married 50, 60 years. They sit together on wooden porches, hands wrinkled but intertwined. Ask them how they stayed together, and they'll smile and say, "We just kept forgiving each other." They don't mean it lightly. They mean they chose mercy more times than they could count. Love, real love, doesn't survive because people never hurt each other. It survives because forgiveness keeps breathing when pain tries to suffocate it. Dr. Gary Chapman, the author of The 5 Love Languages, once said that every marriage is a dance between grace and growth. And growth always hurts a little. Every time we forgive, we are letting grace rewrite the story. There's a story from a small church in Texas, a man named Robert who nearly lost his marriage after years of resentment. He told his pastor, "I've said sorry 1,000 times and she still won't forgive me." The pastor replied, "Then stop trying to earn forgiveness. Start living it." So Robert began waking up early, cooking breakfast, leaving small notes that said, "I'm still here." Weeks turned into months, and one morning his wife whispered through tears, "I believe you now." Forgiveness isn't magic, it's motion. It happens not in a single moment, but in 1,000 quiet choices. To stay when you could leave, to listen when you could walk away. And that, friends, is what makes forgiveness holy. Not that it changes the past, but that it changes us. In American culture, where independence is celebrated and vulnerability is often feared, forgiveness becomes countercultural. It demands humility in a world obsessed with self. It invites tenderness in a society that prizes control. But the truth is, we can't love without forgiveness. Every relationship that lasts is built on the courage to say, "I'm sorry," and the grace to reply, "I forgive you." Think of Christ on the cross, the most unjust suffering in history, and yet his first words were, "Father, forgive them." He didn't wait for an apology. He offered mercy before anyone deserved it. And that, dear friends, is what turns human love into divine love. Forgiveness also heals families. In a suburban neighborhood in Ohio, a father and his teenage son hadn't spoken for over a year. The boy had left home in anger. Then one winter night, the father saw his son walking alone by the gas station. Without thinking, he ran across the snow, wrapped his arms around the boy, and whispered, "Let's start over." That one embrace didn't fix everything overnight, but it cracked open the wall between them. Sometimes forgiveness begins with a hug before words ever come. The Catholic writer Matthew Kelly says that forgiveness is a daily habit of the saints. It's not for perfect people, it's for those who have been hurt deeply, yet still dare to hope. When a husband forgives his wife, when a wife forgives her husband, when parents forgive their children, heaven rejoices because something divine has happened on earth. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering differently. Remembering the wound not as a place of pain, but as the beginning of healing. That's what the cross teaches us, that wounds, when surrendered to God, can become windows of grace. Dear friends, forgiveness is not about who was wrong. It's about who will choose love again. It's about choosing to believe that the same God who raised Jesus from the dead can also resurrect what feels dead in your marriage, your family, your heart. So if you're holding on to anger tonight, if your home feels cold and your heart tired, maybe it's time to whisper, "Lord, teach me how to forgive." Because forgiveness is the language of heaven, and every time we speak it, a little bit of heaven touches earth. And when love learns to forgive, it becomes unbreakable. Dear friends, when God wanted to show the world what his love looked like, he didn't send a theory. He sent a family. Not a powerful dynasty, not a royal court, but a simple home in Nazareth. There, love took on flesh. There, in the laughter of a child and the care of two faithful parents, the divine became visible. That truth still echoes through time. Every family, in its own way, is meant to be a living reflection of God's love. Not perfect, not flawless, but real. A love that forgives, endures, and gives life. In the heart of American culture, the family has always been called the cornerstone of society. It's where children first learn right from wrong, where values are formed, and where faith takes root. But in recent decades, that foundation has been shaken by busyness, by technology, by a world that often confuses pleasure for purpose. And yet, amid all that noise, families who live in faith still shine like lighthouses along the shore. Think of the military wife who prays every night for her husband deployed overseas. Think of the single mother who brings her children to church every Sunday, even when the car barely starts. Think of the father who works 2 jobs but still makes time to read bedtime stories. Each of these moments, unseen by most, are reflections of divine love. Because God's love is not loud, it's faithful. The gospel tells us that God is love, not has love, not shows love, but is love. So when a family loves, truly loves, they make the invisible God visible. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every choice to forgive is a mirror of heaven. Focus on the Family once wrote that the family is the smallest form of church and the first. That means your dining table can be an altar. Your living room can be a sanctuary. Your daily routines can be a liturgy of love. When we invite God into our homes, every meal, every conversation, every challenge becomes holy ground. In a small parish in Minnesota, there's a tradition where families take turns bringing the statue of the Holy Family home for a week. During that week, they pray together every night, asking God to bless their home. Many families say that something changes, not in their circumstances, but in their hearts. Because when love is made visible through prayer, homes become reflections of heaven. In American suburbs, where neighbors often live close but remain strangers, faith-filled families have a quiet but powerful mission: to make love visible again. That might mean inviting a lonely neighbor to dinner, volunteering together at a shelter, or simply being kind in traffic. It doesn't take a sermon to reveal God. It takes sincerity. A gentle word can soften a heart faster than 1,000 debates. Dr. Edward Sri reminds us that love, when lived faithfully, becomes evangelization without words. People may forget what we say, but they never forget how we make them feel. When someone encounters a family marked by peace, forgiveness, and unity, they can't help but wonder, what makes them different? And the answer is simple: God's love at work among them. There's a story from a small town in Kentucky about a couple named Sarah and Mike. Their home became known in the neighborhood as the house with open doors. Every Thanksgiving, they hosted anyone who had nowhere to go: veterans, widows, college students far from home. When asked why, Sarah said, "Because God never closed his door on us." Their table became a living sermon. That's what it means for a family to reflect God's love, to make hospitality, compassion, and mercy the language of daily life. Dear friends, reflecting God's love in the world doesn't require perfection. It requires participation. It means showing up even when we're tired, forgiving even when it's hard, serving even when it's unseen. Every time we choose love over pride, patience over anger, generosity over indifference, we reveal a glimpse of the divine. And this is what the world needs now more than ever. Not more noise, not more opinions, but more love. Love that listens, love that protects, love that sacrifices, love that doesn't end when it's inconvenient. In the fast rhythms of modern America, many people feel lost, unseen, or unloved. But when they encounter a family grounded in faith, something awakens. They see that love still exists, that goodness is still possible, that God still moves in ordinary homes. In the Catholic tradition, the Church calls the family the domestic church. That means your home can be a sanctuary of grace, a living icon of God's mercy. When you bless your children before bed, when you pray as a couple, when you forgive a wrong, you are preaching the gospel with your life. Your love becomes a reflection of the Father's, steady, enduring, unconditional. And when those around you, co-workers, friends, neighbors, see that light shining through your family, they may not know the words to describe it, but they will feel the warmth of heaven. That's what it means to be a reflection of God's love in the world. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. Not about knowing all the answers. It's about living the right questions. How can I love more deeply today? How can I serve more humbly? How can I forgive more freely? Dear friends, the world will always have darkness, but families of faith are meant to be its candles, and even one small light can guide others home. So keep shining, keep loving, keep choosing grace when the world chooses bitterness, because every time you do, you mirror the love of the one who created you, the love that holds the universe together. And in that reflection, the world remembers what it's been missing all along: the face of God, revealed through the beauty of a faithful family. Dear friends, peace. It's the one thing everyone seems to be searching for, yet the one thing that feels so hard to hold on to. We chase it in vacations, in money, in success, in silence, but somehow it keeps slipping through our fingers. Maybe that's because peace isn't something we find out there. Peace begins within, and it begins with God. In today's America, life moves at the speed of Wi-Fi. Our calendars are full, our minds are crowded, and our hearts rarely get a moment to rest. But the truth is, peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of trust. It's not about escaping the storm, but learning to rest while it's still raining. A nurse in Boston once shared that after working endless shifts in the ICU, she began feeling burned out and numb. One night, after losing another patient, she sat in her car and whispered, "God, where are you in all this pain?" In that silence, she felt a small, steady voice inside her heart say, "Right here." Nothing outside changed. The hospital, the grief, the exhaustion, but something inside her did. Peace had found her in the middle of chaos. That's how God often works. He doesn't always calm the storm around us, but He calms the storm within us. And that inner stillness, that sacred calm, is the foundation for every good thing that follows. Dr. Charles Stanley once said, "Peace with God is the beginning of peace within yourself." When we are reconciled with Him, when we surrender our pride, our guilt, our striving, our hearts begin to breathe again. Because peace isn't something we earn, it's something we receive. And once we receive it, it begins to overflow into our families, our workplaces, our communities. Imagine a home where peace is not a rare guest, but a daily resident. Where disagreements end not in shouting, but in prayer. Where children see their parents listening before judging, forgiving before resenting. That kind of peace doesn't just happen. It's cultivated, one small act of grace at a time. In American culture, we often equate peace with comfort, but the peace of Christ isn't about comfort, it's about confidence. Confidence that even when life breaks, God is still building. Confidence that even when the world feels dark, light still wins. And confidence that no matter what comes, we are never alone. There's a family in Texas who lost their home to a tornado. When asked how they managed to stay calm, the father said, "We lost everything we owned, but not what matters most: our faith, our family, our peace." That's what happens when your foundation is God. The wind can take your roof, but not your hope. Saint Teresa of Calcutta once told a group of Americans visiting her in India, You have so many things, but you are the poorest of the poor because you've forgotten how to be still. Those words echo louder today than ever. Our culture rewards busyness, but peace requires stillness. To find peace, we must learn to pause, to be silent enough to hear God's whisper again. In California, a young mother started a practice she calls the Sacred Minute. Every day at noon, she stops whatever she's doing, closes her eyes, and prays one simple line: "Jesus, be my peace." She says it's changed everything. Not her schedule, not her struggles, but her spirit. Because peace isn't about changing your circumstances, it's about changing your posture before them. Dear friends, finding God in ordinary moments isn't about waiting for miracles, it's about noticing them. It's in the way sunlight filters through the kitchen window as you make breakfast. It's in the laughter of your children after a long day. It's in the quiet, "I love you" before sleep. God is in all of it, the small, sacred details we too often overlook. When you start to see your daily life as holy ground, peace becomes possible everywhere. Your commute becomes a time for prayer. Your chores become acts of love. Your silence becomes communion. That's where true peace is born, not in what you escape from, but in what you embrace with faith. There's a story about a retired couple in Montana who began every morning by sitting together on their porch, holding hands, watching the sunrise. They called it their first prayer of the day. When asked what they prayed for, the wife said, "Nothing. We just thank him for letting us see another sunrise together." That's peace, gratitude made visible. It's realizing that every sunrise, every heartbeat, every breath is a gift. Peace grows when gratitude takes root. When we start focusing more on what we have than what we lack, when we start thanking God before asking Him for more, when we trust that His timing is better than ours, then peace begins to stay. Dear friends, the world cannot give us lasting peace because it cannot give us what it does not have. Only the one who calmed the sea can calm our souls. Only the one who conquered death can quiet our fears. Only the one who lives within us can turn ordinary days into sacred encounters. So wherever you are, in traffic, in a hospital room, in the noise of a busy city, or the quiet of your living room, breathe and remember, God is there. You don't have to search far. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. Peace is already knocking, softly, patiently, faithfully. Open the door, let Him in, and let His presence turn your ordinary moments into holy ones. Because when God dwells within you, peace doesn't just visit, it stays. Dear friends, we live in a world that feels wounded. Turn on the news and you'll see division, anger, fear, and despair. We see families torn apart, communities fractured, and hearts that have forgotten how to trust. Sometimes it feels like light itself is fading. But here's the truth. Even in a broken world, grace still flows. And the gospel is still good news. It's not just a story from 2,000 years ago. It's not confined to the pages of scripture or the walls of a church. The gospel is alive. It's God's love, still moving through ordinary people who choose compassion over comfort, mercy over judgment, and faith over fear. In a small town in Kansas, a teacher named Michael found out that one of his students, a quiet boy, was living out of a car with his mother. Instead of looking the other way, he and his wife opened their home. They didn't just feed him, they made him part of the family. When asked why, Michael said, "Because the gospel is not a sermon, it's an invitation to love." That is what it means to live the gospel in a broken world, to turn faith into flesh and belief into action. Jesus never asked us to build perfect systems. He asked us to build bridges. He didn't promise that life would be easy. He promised that we would never be alone. And He showed us by His own wounds that healing doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from transforming it. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Those words are not just poetry, they are gospel truth. The world changes not when power rises, but when hearts do. In American culture, it's easy to separate faith from daily life, to treat Sunday as sacred and Monday as survival. But the gospel doesn't work that way. It's not meant to stay in church pews. It's meant to walk the streets, sit in classrooms, work in hospitals, and stand in boardrooms. It's meant to be lived in the way we treat others, especially those who can give us nothing in return. Every smile given to a stranger, every meal shared with the hungry, every prayer whispered for someone who hurt you, that's the gospel in motion. That's the kingdom of God breaking into our world, one act of love at a time. Mother Teresa often reminded people, we are not called to do great things, but small things with great love. And in a culture obsessed with recognition, that message is revolutionary. To live the gospel is to love without needing applause, to serve without needing to be seen, to forgive even when no one says I'm sorry. It's to believe that one small candle can still push back the dark. In Detroit, a community church runs a laundry love program. Volunteers go to laundromats every weekend and pay for strangers' laundry. No sermons, no strings attached. When one man asked why they did it, the volunteer simply said, because this is what love looks like with quarters. That's the gospel. Practical, personal, and powerful. Dear friends, when the world breaks, people often ask, where is God? But maybe the better question is, where are we? Because we are His hands now. We are His voice, His compassion, His courage. And when we choose to live with mercy and hope, the presence of God becomes visible again. In America today, where many feel isolated and unseen, the church has an opportunity, not to condemn, but to comfort. Not to shout louder, but to listen deeper. Not to judge the broken, but to kneel beside them. Because the gospel isn't a weapon to win arguments, it's a remedy to heal wounds. There's a firefighter in New York who once said, every time I run into a burning building, I whisper, Lord, use me to bring someone home. That's not just heroism, that's holiness. Because living the gospel means showing up where others run away. It means carrying light into darkness, again and again, even when your hands tremble. And maybe that's the lesson the modern world needs most. That faith is not a shield to hide behind, but a torch to carry forward. You don't need a pulpit to preach. You just need to love where you are, with what you have. Your workplace can be a mission field. Your kindness can be a sermon. Your forgiveness can be a revolution. Dear friends, living the gospel in a broken world doesn't mean ignoring its pain. It means walking right into it, carrying the peace of Christ in your heart. Because when you love in the face of hatred, when you hope in the face of despair, when you forgive in the face of betrayal, you make heaven touch earth. And that's the miracle the world is starving for. Not louder voices, but gentler hearts. Not bigger churches, but deeper compassion. Not more arguments, but more mercy. The gospel is not complicated, it's costly. It costs comfort, pride, time, convenience, but what it gives in return is far greater. Meaning, purpose, and peace that no world can steal. So, live it boldly, love recklessly, forgive relentlessly, and let the light within you remind the world that grace still works, mercy still heals, and Christ still reigns, even here, even now. Because when you live the gospel, you don't just change your corner of the world, you change eternity. Dear friends, there are moments in life when everything we thought was certain begins to crumble. The phone call that changes everything, the diagnosis we never expected, the prayer that seems unanswered, the dream that falls apart. In those moments when the light grows dim and faith feels fragile, there remains one sacred thread that holds us together: hope. Hope is not naive optimism. It's not pretending everything is fine. Hope is the stubborn belief that even when life doesn't make sense, God is still good. It's the quiet confidence that His plan is bigger than our pain and His timing is wiser than our fear. In the heart of rural Oklahoma, a man named David lost his wife to cancer after 30 years of marriage. For months he couldn't pray. He said he felt like God had gone silent. One night, sitting on the porch watching the sunset they used to share, he whispered, "Lord, I can't feel you." And in that stillness, he heard within his heart, "But I still feel you." Tears fell freely. He said it was then he realized God had been there the whole time, not shouting from the heavens, but holding him in the silence. That's hope. The ability to keep trusting even when we can't trace His hand. In American culture, we're taught to control, to plan, to predict. But faith begins where control ends. Sometimes God doesn't change the situation because He's using it to change us. He doesn't remove the mountain, He strengthens the legs that climb it. And while we crave answers, God offers presence. Because His greatest promise was never that life would be easy, but that He would never leave us. A pastor from North Carolina once said, "We all want a roadmap, but God gives us a compass." That compass is hope. It points not to certainty, but to trust. It reminds us that even when we don't know what tomorrow holds, we know the one who holds tomorrow. There's a true story from Louisiana about a woman named Carla who lost her home during Hurricane Katrina. She and her family spent months living in shelters. She said the hardest part wasn't losing the house, it was losing the sense of direction. Then one night, a volunteer brought her a Bible and read aloud, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord." She said those words became her anchor. Years later, she rebuilt not just a house, but a new life serving others who lost theirs. Her story became a testimony. Sometimes you don't need to see the whole picture. You just need to trust the artist. Hope is powerful because it changes how we see suffering. It doesn't erase the pain, it redeems it. It transforms why me into use me. It turns wounds into wisdom and tragedy into testimony. Dr. Rick Warren once shared, "Your greatest ministry will come out of your deepest hurt." When we bring our brokenness to God, He doesn't waste a single tear. He molds it into compassion, strength, and empathy for others. That's how hope multiplies. One heart healed at a time. Dear friends, some of the most moving stories of hope come from the very people who've lost the most. The soldier who returns from war and becomes a counselor for veterans battling trauma. The mother who lost her child but now comforts others in grief. The addict who found redemption and now helps others find the same freedom. Their lives shout a truth our world needs to hear. Pain is not the end of the story. God can take what was meant to destroy us and use it to deliver others. Hope is not built in comfort. It's built in the fire. It's born in the midnight hours when we have nothing left but faith. It's what keeps us breathing when the night is long and dawn feels far away. And when morning finally comes, it reminds us that we didn't survive by strength, but by grace. In the Gospel, after the crucifixion, there was a long, silent Saturday. The disciples hid, the world seemed lost, and hope looked dead. But Sunday came, and in that moment, everything changed. Not just for them, but for all of us. The empty tomb wasn't just a miracle, it was a message. No darkness is final. Even when it feels like the story is over, God is still writing. That's what hope looks like. A faith that waits 3 days in the dark because it believes resurrection is coming. It's what keeps families together when life falls apart. It's what gives a broken world reason to believe again. In California, there's a small church that keeps a wall called the Hope Board. People write prayers, dreams, and struggles on sticky notes and pin them there. Some notes say, "Praying for my son to come home." Others say, "Still waiting for healing." Once a month, the church reads them aloud and prays for every name. Many of those stories end in miracles, But even the ones that don't still speak of faith. Because sometimes the miracle is not in the outcome, but in the endurance. That's the essence of hope. It doesn't deny pain. It dares to stand within it and whisper, God is not finished yet. Dear friends, maybe right now you're in your own Saturday, between the heartbreak and the healing, between the loss and the light. If that's you, hold on. God has not forgotten you. He is still weaving beauty from the threads of your brokenness. You may not see it yet, but heaven does. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize that even in the moments you felt abandoned, He was carrying you. Hope is not fragile. It's fierce. It's what allows you to smile through tears, to love again after loss, to pray again after silence. It's not wishful thinking, it's resurrection thinking, the belief that what looks dead can live again. So keep hoping, keep trusting, keep walking, even if it's through the valley, because the same God who parted the sea still makes a way today. The same Christ who rose from the tomb still lifts hearts from despair. And the same Spirit who hovered over chaos still breathes peace into storms. And when that hope takes root in your heart, you'll discover something extraordinary. That even in the hardest season of your life, God's plan has always been love.